Thanks everyone for tuning in today. I am so thrilled to be here for our panel and welcoming you from the Louisiana Food Prize. Sorry. Welcoming you from the Louisiana Food Prize. It's been one of those days, but that's fine because we are all here together and I am thrilled for today's panel. Before we get started, I would like to do a quick thank you of our sponsors because without our sponsors, we really wouldn't be able to do anything at all. And we so appreciate them. So a big thank you to Allen Energy, as well as Karen and Cassidy Phillips, to Coca-Cola, to The Cottage, to Eagle Distributing, to Elizabeth and Alex Kennedy, to Gregory and Heidi Kallenberg, to the Polyak Group at Morgan Stanley, to the Remington Hotel and Suites, and to the Rosslyn Charitable Foundation. And speaking of the Rosslyn Charitable Foundation, I am thrilled today to have with me Jane Watts from the foundation. And I'm going to invite Jane up here to say just a couple of words. Hold on one second. Here we go. Hi, Jane. Welcome.
All right. Hi. Hey, Melissa. Thank you for giving me a brief moment to say a little bit about the foundation and our involvement in this project with you guys. The foundation was inspired by Ross's legacy. Ross was my son. He was known for supporting his friends, assisting with causes, and encouraging and stirring people to become their best selves. And so in that light, we created the foundation and got involved in programs that reflected his life and movements to support movements that he believed in that would make a difference in individuals and in our communities. One of those areas has to do with regenerative agriculture. Ross was a farmer who grasped the vision of this regenerative movement. He was a grower himself of produce that was being distributed in the Shreveport-Bossier area when he died. He believed in supporting local. He was active in many aspects of the movement that our panelists and viewers are doing today. And like the prize, we at the Rosslyn Foundation believe in investing in the individuals because they're the ones that are going to make the changes that are positive in our communities. We're pleased to partner with the Prize Foundation and especially the Food Prize and the importance of supporting growers and markets and chefs and organizations that are committed to this food movement. Thank you to you and the prize for letting us be part of this. Thank you to our panel members today for being movers and shakers in this work. Really look forward to hearing what they have to say.
Thank you so much, Jane. We super appreciate it again. And what better way than to launch right into our panel today. So with that, I am going to bring our panelists up and there we go. So I've got Kate Estrad. I have Megan Dortland. I have Desi Bourgeois. And also with me today, I have Tristan Epps. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're thrilled to have you. And before we get started, what I'd like to do is just give everyone maybe just a quick moment to introduce themselves, say a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your business, whether, Kate, would you like to start?
Sure. So I'm Kate. My husband Grant and I have what started as a garden shop in Metairie, which is a suburb of New Orleans. And then we started a farm about 65 miles north of the shop in 2016, 15, we'll say. And so we do pastured eggs, forest pastured pork, grass-fed beef, and goat meat. And then through developing a model to sell our products alongside our gardening supplies. And we also do composting and sell compost and soil blends and worm compost and things like that. We started reselling other farmers' products alongside our own back when we were really beginning to sell our stuff. And so that's kind of evolved into a little local grocery model. And now we have products from usually like 20 or so other farms and vendors that do like ferments and jams and value add stuff with local products. And then before COVID, we had developed this neighborhood delivery model where we take pre-orders to go to different neighborhoods in New Orleans to reach more people like closer to their homes. And then that all kind of got turned upside down in COVID, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And so we are back to doing that, but we sell a lot more from our store in Metairie now too. So yeah.
Thank you. And Megan, I'll move on to you, please.
My name is Megan, and I'm the marketing and sales coordinator for Mahaffey Farms. We raise beef, pork, and chicken in Houghton, Louisiana. We also have a farm store where we sell our products, as well as a local delivery that we do twice a week. Plus we supply, local wholesale and markets in the area. And that's what we do.
All right, Desi, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, my name is Desi Bourgeois. I'm the chef owner at 2 food trucks located in downtown Ruston. Grown and Graves is the first, and we recently added Staple Sandwich Company. The goal here is to actually just get community vibe and sort of build an economy around what we can do with as much local purchase as we can. I mean, we're doing our best and trying to encourage people to grow more and do more and bring us more so we have more opportunity. We're fortunate that we do have those people who want to participate, and our customers seem to enjoy it thoroughly, so we're happy to do so.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Tristan Epps.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tristan Epps. I am the executive chef, or chef de cuisine of Red Rooster Overtown in Miami. I work for a celebrity chef of Marcus Samuelson. So I kind of took this project on coming to Miami in a underserved community that was also kind of a food desert. And we opened up a giant restaurant. And I said, if we were going to open up a giant restaurant in this community that has been underserved, I wanted to make sure that we could get the best food to them as possible. So, I mean, of course, there was a business to be run, but there was also an opportunity to be taken advantage of getting rid of as many corner stores and different types of processed foods. And so I work with community gardens. I'm in the process of getting as many local farmers from around the South Florida area and doing Overtown's first farmers market, and really just getting more nutritional food, as well as teaching kids how to grow food and get food for free, and providing more nutritional, more organic, and sustainable food in their own neighborhood.
I love that. Well, I'm thrilled to have all of you with us today. Chris J was supposed to join us today, and unfortunately he's been unable to do so, but I'm thrilled because it gives me the opportunity to speak with all of you. So we're going to launch right into it. Kate, you're right. We probably can't avoid talking about COVID-19 at this point. So we may as well go ahead and start there, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. It really has changed for sure America's relationship with food delivery. And I assume, well, I would say not only with groceries or unprepared foods, but with prepared as well. We see the normalization of curbside service. We've seen the rise of ghost kitchens. I'm wondering if each of you might be willing to say a few words about how these changes have impacted your own businesses, and whether you think of them as kind of temporary changes, or if this is really something that's going to become something permanent moving forward.
Do you want me to start?
Go for it.
So for us, I mean, and I think Megan, I'm sure we'll talk about this too. We just saw a huge spike in demand for food when lockdowns and stuff started. And then we saw multiple waves of that. It was like different motivations and different things happening that were causing people to want to buy local. So initially, because we sell eggs and we sell dairy from another farm and meat, there was a population of people that weren't really our customers before that found us because the grocery store shelves were empty for the first time. in their lives. And I thought that was a really interesting wake up for a lot of people, because it was like, I think Chris was maybe going to ask something about pricing and privilege and like, you know, having local food feel a little like even more inaccessible in COVID. But for us, we kind of saw some of the opposite of like this breakdown in logistics, and all this food meant for industrial kitchens, like, you know, schools and cafeterias that were closed, then not really being able to get into like a home kitchen's hands. But for us, you know, small local farms are able to pivot very easily. So we did, the only thing we really sell wholesale is eggs, not our meat so much. You know, so we did have restaurants not needing the eggs, but it's nothing to then pack those eggs in dozens for the super increased demand that we saw in that time. So I sort of thought of it too as a little bit of, you know, the resiliency of a local food system being able to pivot and be more flexible and nimble than the sort of behemoth and everything that we don't really realize of, you know, packing facilities and trucking and distribution. And then on the meat realm, we certainly saw some major increase right away. But as soon as news started coming out about the working conditions in these big slaughterhouses, and concerns about, not only just concerns about meat shortages down the line, but for some people, even though I've known stuff, the human rights element, worker rights element has been a huge motivation for us raising meat, because we use these small butchers that don't have conditions like that for people. But for a lot of people, like, they had never had a reason for that to occur to them. You know, so COVID was, and these, you know, outbreaks of the virus, of workers, that was the first time that they ever even understood that you know, you have 20,000 people working in a plant like that. And that was a little later. That was like, you know, the big spike started in March, but I would say this was, you know, we were still getting new customers like in April and end of April, and all of that came out. So yeah, so it definitely made people more comfortable with contactless pickup. And for us, like, our small retail space that we have, it's actually way more efficient for us to pack pre-orders than to have that number of people inside browsing. And the amount that they're going to buy is higher if they're just looking at this huge list of 200 products online than just being in our small little space and like pulling things out of freezers and fridges. So we felt right away like this is going to change behavior probably long term. And there's a percentage of our new customers that are only going to be COVID customers, and they're going to like filter back to their other ways. But a lot of them have become like our new regulars. And then I think getting used to just grocery delivery and all those things, you know, really has changed what people are expecting from just grocery stores and in general. So. Yeah.
Megan, have you seen similar things with Mahaffey?
Absolutely. I mean, kind of to piggyback off what Kate was saying, we had home delivery in place, luckily, before the pandemic started, but it was just our meats, our eggs, kind of like the basics of what we provide, you know, to our local community. But then it definitely just like skyrocketed, and it was just like, okay, we need groceries. Like, these people need groceries. They're wanting like a one-stop shop situation. So we definitely started buying like packaged grocery to add on to our meats and eggs and produce and stuff like that, which was new. But again, like Kate was saying, it seems to be something that people want, you know, regardless of what happened during the pandemic. It's like, wait, this is nice. I know, you know, I can go to this store, I can meet these people, like the food is awesome. And like, I can buy my flour and jellies and jams all in one place. So, I mean, we were seeing like an uptick in delivery before this started, but I think that it's definitely going to be a permanent situation of just like, you know, they found us by surprise or kind of in a panic, but I think that they're, you know, going to keep coming back to get their groceries every week from someone that they feel like they know.
Desi, you know, I know you run a food truck. What has the experience been for you this past year?
So initially we were a little bit concerned about it because we do have these window interactions here. And so we took some time back to sort of address and assess and see how things were turning out initially. So we kind of pushed into March and then pulled back as we knew people who were actually contacting or contracting COVID. And so we pulled back a little bit and waited to see how this would work out. So we shut down for about 8 weeks while we felt out the market and see what other people were doing and how they were handling it. And I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of contacts across lines of business from my years in the business, and just asking people's opinions about it. When we felt like it was safe we could take some preventative measures, masking, hand washing. We could kind of keep a window between us and people. People were trying to get that sort of interaction. They wanted to be out, and we're outdoors. So it seems like a safe space. Lots of air blowing around here. So we did see customers coming to us who had never attempted to come to us because we were outdoors. So that helped us on that side, and they still come today. So we've actually gained new customers from that. I'm fortunate enough to sit on the board. I have a board seat at the local farmers market here. And, I was able to see sort of both sides of the spectrum. So I know that like Kate and Megan were looking at it from the farm directly selling to their customers. And we were looking at it as a venue for our farmers to reach out to customers. And we switched entirely to an order online and pickup model for about 4 months. It got us new customers, like I think some of you guys that may have experienced, who weren't comfortable coming to the market. But it also fortified some relationships that we had for a Saturday only market, where people now are like, I can pick up on Saturday, but we added an additional pickup point during the middle of the week on a Tuesday, which expanded our reach even more. So people were getting things on Saturdays and Tuesdays, and that benefited our local growers, which benefits me, because the more product that they know they can move, the more that they can get to everybody. So we saw an uptick in the production in the fall. Unfortunately, we had a hurricane that took out a lot of that. I don't know about you guys, but our hurricane came through, and here in Ruston, Louisiana, we had a Category 1 hurricane, and so some of our growers were affected by that. But they had committed to putting a lot of crops in the ground and bringing us new stock, which was phenomenal on our part. So our business, as soon as we reopened, came back. We really didn't have a lull in that day sales. When we look at previous year to date, we're on target. We even took the opportunity to swap one of our concepts that wasn't officially making us any money and bring on a sandwich shop, and that expands what we do still. So we bring local produce in for that. It's a sandwich shop. We're baking bread. We're doing those things, and our local produce comes in the form of herbs. We build a lot of vegetable side salads, cold salads. So that's where we bring in local product for those things. And it's helped us expand what we do in both locations. At Grown and Graze, where we're burger focused in the afternoon and breakfast focused in the morning. So our egg consumption has gone up about 3 times what it was last year this time. So we're seeing more people getting out from the breakfast, and we're able to buy more. So I don't think we've taken a hit that some businesses.
That's fantastic. Tristan, I know Red Rooster was in a completely different spot. You were in March of 2020 getting ready to open Red Rooster. Tell us a little bit what this year you've seen.
So, yeah, I mean, Miami was in a different state than most of the United States. I mean, we've been at 100% open since October of last year. And because we were a new restaurant, we've seen, we had a lot of business, which was great. But, March of last year, yeah, we were 3 days away from opening with a whole restaurant full of food.
Oh my God.
That we then ended up just doing World Central Kitchen with. We did that for about 18 weeks. But what we kind of found is that is when, as much as we had to pivot, local farms and local produce was able to pivot with us. And that's where we got a lot of our food from. Like, we obviously couldn't pay for a lot of it anymore. And we took right into action, just going into feeding a really big homeless population that we have around us. So that was great. Like, it really showed a hole that we had in our industry. And not only were we proud of that, we were able to feed people, but we were able to feed them stuff that we were really proud of. You know, we were able to talk to our local farms who were otherwise just letting things overgrow, or, you know, needed it to go somewhere. So when we could pay for it, we paid for it. When they could give it to us, they gave it to us. And so by that way, we wanted to support them as much as we could, even vendors that we're using now. And, you know, as the pandemic kept going, you know, it went from just homeless to then people without jobs, then to people, you know, driving over and getting meals because they were in a different spot. But we were able to create this really great reputation for, you know, we support our community and our community supports us. So now there is, right outside my restaurant, we actually have a hydroponic farm that we use. And then 6 more got set up a block away. And once again, like, when I say underserved, you know, community, I mean, my restaurant's in the hood. So it's like, it's very much like something that wasn't here before. We have, you know, something called the Green Haven Project that's right down the street from us. And they're growing a lot of, you know, cabbage, greens, tomatoes, everything that we can. And, you know, we're blessed to have great weather year round. So we use it, you know, we use it as much as we can. And it was an amazing way to actually see what the community and what local could do for us when it was most in need.
I mean, fantastic. I mean, like, it's really nice. It's nice to see like this kind of local support. And I think one thing that has come out of pandemic is how much communities have realized how much they can and should lean upon each other and cooperate, play nice. So as we kind of think a little bit more, one thing that I know there's a lot of chefs, a lot of restaurant owners that talk often about like wanting to source locally, but sometimes there's that maybe misconception that to use locally sourced product is going to kind of eat them alive from a cost perspective, that maybe it'd be too high and like, how are they going to afford it? Or I'd love to hear a little bit on the restaurant side from you, Desi and Tristan, about chefs maybe with a concern for pricing. How realistic is that? And maybe some strategies, if it is true, to cope and kind of begin to offset those costs.
I mean, I guess I can go first. It's hard to, you know, convince, especially in a neighborhood like mine, that, you know, you want to give better food and local food and support local food. But it's not so much a big cost on the restaurant as it is passing those prices on to our customers. You know, it's hard to tell somebody that, you know, we serve a whole chicken, right? Our whole chicken is $75, you know, and then somebody, you know, and I can tell them, you know, it's an air chilled, it's a local chicken, it's, you know, fed beautiful, the skin is yellow from the diet that it's had, you know, it's a delicious chicken, right? But it's hard to then go tell somebody like why they should buy our chicken rather than the $5 chicken they can get from Costco that's already cooked for them and ready to go, you know, or the $5 chicken they can go somewhere else, you know. It's hard to sometimes off put that, you know, but it really just comes to like everyone has to buy in, and you have to be consistent with it, and be, you know, you are who you are, and the people, you know, I think will slowly come around. You know, I always look at, and I tell my servers, and I tell, you know, my bartenders, and I tell everyone, like even my cooks, you know, we're not, when we're supporting this local farm, like, one, you know, our vegetables last longer because they're not traveling very far. You know, they are, you know, in our refrigerator, you know, for 2 weeks without anything happening to them because they only came from 10 miles away, you know, an hour away, rather than sitting in a storeroom, sitting somewhere else, you know. That's one great benefit. Two, it's like, it's just that responsibility of helping the community. And three, it's like, we're not supporting some CEO, you know, we're supporting, you know, someone who's trying to put their kid through college, a family's business, a thing. And I think the more we support people will support us back. And then, playing it forward, those prices will come down, right? They will, but everyone has to kind of buy in on it.
Desi, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I think a complete agreement. If you get community buy-in across the board and you have more people wanting to consume, it gets cheaper for the producers, for the growers to grow it when they know they have a market for it locally. So when they can sell everything they produce, it's a whole lot better than them trying to find that secondary market or a third tier market. We're fortunate in that we look at it from some of my experiences have pointed me in this direction, is like looking at it from the gradual change position. So we bring local greens on to make slaws and salads and things like that aside for a dish in support of that scenario, so that those are low-key buy-ins. So somebody could come by here and get 3 vegetable sides for $9, and they're as locally sourced as we can get them. But as an add-on to a locally sourced beef burger, it drives my ticket cost up. It drives my sale price up enough to make it worthwhile for me to actually just sell 3 sides. So I have these buy-ins here where we give some opportunity there. The other piece that we've done is to control as much of the production as we can. So instead of, when we turned on Staples Sandwich Company, we decided not to buy bread. Even though we're a little food truck, we have a full-size convection oven and Grown and Graze, and we were like, let's put it to use. So instead of buying bread, we found something or a resource that we can utilize in more than one way. So we started making focaccia bread in giant loaves, and we're cutting those into 4x4 squares and turning those into sandwiches. So we're not buying bread, which means we're controlling the cost on the bread, which means that we can keep our sandwich price lower when we're adding things to it. So when we're house making pickles or to add to sandwiches, or we're doing those other things, making herb pestos and sauces from roasted vegetables, whatever it may be. If we can control some of the things that in our environment, in a food truck environment, or normally just buy because it makes it easy to put together things. If we can control some of those, we can control that end user cost and maybe help out a little bit. And the other part for me, again, going back to that farmer's market scenario, we have some great partnerships that we're able to bring on board, with like Lincoln Health Foundation in our market, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana, who actually give us money to double our SNAP dollars spent. So our community has money to spend at the market through SNAP. So they come by, they swipe their SNAP card, and we give them tokens for the $10 they swiped it for, and an additional 10, or in some cases on certain days, $20 more. So for $10, they get to spend 30. And when they see what they can buy, and the difference in the quality between what they get in a local grocery, and what they get at the farmer's market, they start to look for those opportunities. Maybe they don't come back to the farmer's market, but maybe they go to the farmer directly who lives in their neighborhood, or is right around the corner, and they go and they buy direct from him and save themselves a few pennies or a few dollars actually when they go directly to the farm and say, hey, I had your greens at the farmer's market. They come to us because they know we're actually supporting that farmer. So when they do have a few extra dollars to spend, we're seeing a demographic in our community that we didn't think we were going to touch so much, because they do see the value in it. We support a farmer's market that they attend, and then we give them educational pieces too. We do demos at the farmer's market whenever we can, or we're doing things like, hey, here's how you expand that $75 chicken. Is like, that's I buy it at the market and it's $18, but I can show you how to break it down and turn it into 5 meals instead of 1 meal, the roasted chicken you get off the Costco line. So I can teach you how to make stock, and I can teach you how to take this chicken and break it down so that you can actually extend it and stretch it. And especially if you buy some low cost items, the greens and the veggies that you can buy and extend those meals out. So a lot of it's just community buy-in, but it's also education. Like, if we take the opportunity as farmers, chefs, market directors, all of those, if we actually all get together and we're all communicating the same message, it's like you can teach somebody how to actually extend that, then everybody wins from, me at the retail level, restaurant retail level, down to the farmer level with, you know, Kate and Megan. It really does impact really fast if you can get that buy-in.
Megan and Kate, have you kind of noticed similar things?
Cut out there for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm getting some kind of weird feedback, but there it is. All right. So Megan and Kate, I was just wondering, are you kind of seeing the same thing where it's more of an education, where it's more about educating your consumer, whether it's a business to business or business to straight to a consumer, someone just walking up to you at your farmer's market?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, educating and also like being creative with chefs, and then also your retail customers of, like Desi was saying, how you can stretch those purchases to make, you know, a week's worth of meals. So it's not just like, oh, this chicken is $75, whatever. It's like I can feed my family of 4 for like 2 or 3 days with dinners, you know, from this chicken. And so not just focusing on, you know, it is educating, but also like embracing it to make it this fun, like creative thing of like how you can support your neighbor instead of going to the Brookshires or the Kroger, because like Tristan was saying, it's like you're supporting that person. It's not like all that other stuff about, you know, knowing what it's fed and all, you know, that is all good and great, but also it's like you're spending your money with your neighbor that you can talk to and influence like the products that you're getting.
For sure. The only thing that we wholesale is eggs, and just to that restaurant relationship, like, you know, no matter how well you plan when you're getting your replacement chicks and stuff, eggs are a seasonal product. A lot of people don't realize that. They're really influenced by daylight. So for us to have enough eggs to meet our retail demand, like we couldn't do it without having restaurants to buy the eggs when we have a ton of them. So it's just like an interesting thing from a farmer perspective, because our margin is like barely 20% on the wholesale eggs. It's much more on the retail. But there would just be no way that we could ever have enough eggs for our retail demand without restaurants, you know? So that's just like sort of a unique product. And there's, you know, it needs to be moved fresh. There's not like a, so yeah, and the costs, it's like the costs are just the costs. I think like with eggs in particular, there's a lot of people who have small flocks in the country and there can be like a misperception of like, oh, wow, you're selling pastured eggs for like $6 or $7. Like you must be making a killing. And it's like, well, let me tell you, let me break down like the cost of the chick, the cost to get it to 6 months with all the feed, the electricity, the fencing, the cost of the coop, all the feed they eat, you know, every day, the cost of the egg washer, the labor. It's really labor is a huge part of it, of collecting, washing, packing and stuff. But you start to see that it's like, we wish we could have the price be lower, but we also want to continue to be in business so you can have the eggs if you want them. And so, you know, going much lower than that is not going to do that. So.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of pricing, one thing that I noticed that Mahaffey did, I want to say a couple of years ago, was you kind of created a tiered pricing. You kind of had like a good, better, best. Is that something that was in response to like, how do we kind of handle this pricing issue? How do we make this more accessible?
Yes. So when they first started, you know, they came out with what is now considered our red label product, which is like all organic fed, but organic feed is very pricey. And so being at the farmer's market and, you know, you're talking to someone and they're like, $25 for the chicken. And then they go to Kroger, whatever. And so it was like a lot of people just wanted local, you know, pasture raised chicken. And so that's when we came out with the blue label, which is just like conventional fed, still raised on pasture, still like, you know, way much better than what you can find in the grocery store, but a little, you know, more economical. And so that's where that came from, because, you know, it's like we were talking about, your local food source is the easiest to influence. So that's where that came from.
It's a really
love that. I think that's awesome, because a a lot of people hear with livestock, with meat or egg or dairy products, a lot of people hear organic and don't realize that it mostly has to do with feed. And there's like a few humane standards, but you can have a, you know, commercial chicken house that's organic because they're getting organic feed, and there's really not much difference, except that they have to wear hazmat suits because biosecurity is so much more of a concern because they can't give them drugs. That's the other difference, right? So, you know, like people start to realize like they think they want organic, but when they understand that like the power of grass and bugs and being outside and like the welfare and stress factor of that chicken probably has like a much more significant influence on its on what you care about in the nutrients, then it's like, actually, especially if you're having to source organic feed from out of state, like we don't have a lot of grain row crops here to produce animal feed, you know, like actually I think the conventional is fine for my values and my price point. And then for the people that are super hardcore of like, they think that pesticides, that the, you know, residual pesticides on the feed that the chicken is going to ingest is going to get passed down into the protein, then you have that option for them. But then you have a more reasonable price point for people that think that the pasture is more important than the feed itself. Yeah.
So yeah, to your point, Megan, like previous life, I worked as an executive chef at Google, and it's, you know, it's an information company, and they freely share that information, and some of those impacts were organic versus local conventional. And when they do that research and they do the studies, it's sort of an influence to me because when you look at their research of, do I really want this organic thing? And in order to meet that standard, I'm willing to reach out 250, 300, 400 miles to get it, versus me getting a conventionally grown chicken, in this case, you know, in your case, where I can get it from somebody who's 30, 40 miles down the road. The environmental impact on me continuously going 400 or 500 miles out is more detrimental to me than buying a conventionally grown chicken in my own backyard. And you know, and you take that to heart after you hear that, and you see that impact, because not only do I change the mindset of it's local first, whenever possible, and it doesn't matter how it's grown, because if I can start putting dollars into your pocket as a buyer, I can influence the way you think about that market as well, but also how we educate those people around us. So maybe we don't have that $25 chicken and we've got an $18 chicken, and it becomes more accessible to more people. And I think that was the big takeaway from that whole scenario, was we were able then to buy more product, offer more diversity, because we had more dollars going into our local guys who now could be like, hey, I'm going to take some of this chicken money and now I'm going to start that vegetable garden I needed. And now I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to move my vegetables and I'm going to add another crop to my vegetable rotation. And that just creates diversity. It creates opportunity for somebody like me to grab in my own backyard. And that's what's important to me. It's like, if I can give $1 to a local farmer, they have incentive to continue to do something that benefits me. And that's good for me, you, and our local community and everybody around.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we've talked a little bit about pricing. I know another challenge that some chefs have spoken about, or restaurants have spoken about, is sometimes that the inventory isn't always dependable. And let's say you have a menu that's kind of a more static menu. Maybe you aren't dealing with a menu that's changing and you're looking for some sort of consistency. You know, what are the challenges? How would you kind of maybe navigate maybe a product where you're depending on seasonality? Is it just is it a matter of just kind of changing and saying, like, we aren't going to do a straight menu where we're serving tomatoes in December. We're going to change our menu to be more seasonal and like kind of flowing along with what's in season in our area. And I'm going to kick that one to you, Tristan. Oh, yes, you, Tristan. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the inventory is a big thing, right? My restaurant at any time can sit 500 people. I mean, we don't do that, but I mean, we do 300 covers a night. One of our biggest selling things is collard greens, and we try to get, the collard greens from the farm that are right down the street. That's hard. We basically saw that we wiped them out in 2 weeks. And then we just moved on to the next farm, and then we moved on to the next farm. I mean, I think definitely when you take that commitment to, you want to try to do as best as you can to source to be a locavore, you have to write a menu that is going to be kind of ever changing, or written a little vague. So like my side doesn't say collard greens, it just says greens, so maybe I could spread that diversity out with some like heirloom spinach and some collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, anything like that. The same thing with chicken. We go through a lot of chicken, and while we can't, completely source local chickens with the amount that we go through, I would just go to the next best thing of a conventional but well taken care of, or something I take, that someone that takes pride in the chickens that they do have. We end up using like Bell and Evans, which is still a really great brand of chicken. Not local, but then I just go look for humane. But yeah, inventory is just like a big thing, but you do have to have the ability to write the menu as many times as you can. I'm lucky to live in Florida, and tomatoes grow whenever they want to grow, all the time. So, tomatoes are on my menu, but I know they're better in the summer. So, we keep it kind of minimal on the menu for the most part. But once the summer hits, we're going to celebrate the hell out of tomatoes. Peas, asparagus, everything like that have just started to come in, which is, this is my favorite time to cook. But, I think they're only good for the next maybe 2 or 3 more weeks. And then I have to just be willing to go to the next one. And everything comes a little earlier here, right? I'm already getting squash blossoms and, really great strawberries and everything already. But just being really focused on that, and just being willing to tell your customer, like, this isn't the best thing I can sell you right now, but this is, and just being ever changing with that menu. I've always been a big believer in that. And let the farms and let the season dictate your menu and narrate your menu.
Yeah. I want to really quickly throw out there to those of you who are joining us and are listening in. We're going to take maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then please, if you have questions for our panelists today, be throwing those in the Q&A. Probably should have been saying that the whole time, but you still have a chance to do that. I think what I'd like to do maybe is have each of you, if you were going to give like your one big pitch, like why are we doing this? Like, why should we be supporting local? What is the big payoff? And whoever wants to go first, but I was like, what's your 2-minute pitch and why it's important?
I think I'll take that one first. I mean, I moved myself from a giant market in Austin, Texas to to come to Ruston, Louisiana, in the middle of north central Louisiana, where there's almost no food culture, and try to implement some of it. Take some of the things I've learned over my career in food and bring them to a small town that has a lot. We have a university. We have several universities here. We're at Grambling State, Louisiana Tech, and ULM, University of Louisiana Monroe, all within 35 miles of each other, and Shreveport's an hour away. And we have some great growers and all of those things. And I think for me, the impact of this buy local scenario, or spending my dollars as locally as I can, is just about fortifying the economy. Like, it's great to say that we're buying local and it's better for you and the food's tasty and all of these other things. And all of that is important to me, with one additional caveat, is that when I spend $1 here in my community, that dollar multiplies in my community. So when I give my local guy $1, I've gotten $1's worth of economy out of it. And then when he spends it back in this economy, because they will, when I give these things to Holly Creek or an Estes Farms, or, a Current Farms or a Smith Family Farms, or any of those, they're going to take that money and spend it right back in this community, which means that we only lose 30 cents off of that dollar. Whereas when I do have to go out and spend money with a grocery, or if I have to buy a broadliner product, which we do, I mean, I have to. We're not going to find anybody in North Louisiana making flour. We know that it's the reverse. When I spend that first dollar, 70 cents of it leaves town, 30 cents of it stays here. And then of that, only 30% still remains of that. So we only get a 10%, 10 cents, duplicating into the market. So for me, the big factor is keeping our dollars as close to home and sort of insulating our little community economically. And I think I hear that in Tristan as well, is when you put a restaurant like theirs in that community and you create an economy around it, you've basically insulated that little community to some extent from some of the impacts of outside forces. And hopefully that's what they're seeing or doing. I know we see it in small spots here. So that's the important part to me, is just creating that insular economy.
I'll piggyback on that. So for us, our motivations are, environmental, humane treatment of the animals, and a healthier product. But to Desi's point, something I started thinking about recently is like, not only do we buy from other farmers and resell their products, but it's like everything is local on the back end, right? Like Whole Foods, just because they have a Whole Foods here doesn't mean their payroll company is here, or their bookkeepers, or their, any of those like other businesses that we just have to use and support are going to be local. So it's like those invisible dollars are, you don't really think about or see are staying here. But yeah, for us, it's like, regenerative practices, like if you care about climate change and waterways and grazing animals on pasture and rotating them, and building soil and sequestering carbon back into the soil through that process, that's a big motivator for us and a lot of our customer base. Treating the livestock with dignity, having a good life, and of course, like, we believe that all results in a more nutrient dense product. And then I also think that it's just the trust of knowing that it's like really real. There's all these certifications now, certified organic, they slap pasture raised on eggs and stuff. And it's like, some of that has no certification process, it's just a marketing term. And so it's like, if you're just buying from a farmer, you don't need any of those labels. Like, you can just ask. And part of we feel our responsibility and like promise is to be open and to share what we can, on social media and on our website. And then, once COVID becomes a little less intense, be able to have people to the farm again. But those, I would say, like the environmental, the like humane treatment, for produce folks, it's obviously the chemical applications and stuff, and then the healthier product.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it just makes the most sense, I guess. It's the freshest, like we were talking about, it's the most secure. When everything was happening, like Kate was saying, we were able to pivot and like listen to our community and bring them what they needed. Whereas like, big box stores, there's like all this distribution and, everything gets paused and they can't get there. And, meanwhile, like, we can call our local farrower, we need more pigs, like, we can bring this to you. And it's just the easiest to influence, and it just tastes better. And like Kate was saying, it's real. Like, when you're spending your money with a local farm, like all that, pasture raised, organic, all that is, that is the benefit of buying some of our products, but it's really like you're spending your money with your neighbor who is working their ass off to grow food for you.
So that leaves me. So for me, I have, like, once again, a motivation for it is I really want to nurture a community, and education and exposure is really big. If you grew up eating out of a corner store, you're going to always eat out of a corner store, and you're going to feed your family out of a corner store. So being able to show how it has been done back in the past of just like before there were all these chemicals and all these other things, and just how to feed yourself and how to grow food yourself and how to source food yourself, I think becomes a more independent community. And when the community is more independent, as everyone has said, is, you know, you're getting that back, right? You are able to eat off of your own nutritional food. You're able to share that, and it only comes back to you again. You know, it creates a really healthy cycle for a community. I've seen some amazing things come from local farms in different places. One of them being in Shreveport, when I went to a restaurant and saw an orange watermelon, and that would have never been something that I'd ever seen, you know, if that person didn't have that chef didn't have, you know, the discipline to source locally and to bring back heirloom seeds and you know, regenerative practices and stuff, like, you know, that would be gone. So just really getting more nutrient dense food into communities and teaching them how to use it is a big part of what I love, and, you know, want to keep supporting. And I think, you know, we go further together. And you can't do that alienating someone in your local community.
Well, I think all lovely answers. I can agree more with all of you. One question I'm having come through now is asking, this person loves supporting local restaurants and they do so frequently, but start to get a little overwhelmed when kind of taking the leap into supporting local farms, which they admittedly are saying they absolutely should do better. But asking if there might be some sort of weekly meal plans or wishing that they had something like that. Is there any advice that you have to someone who wants to do more supporting of local farms, maybe how they could get started?
I don't know. I guess from our perspective, we do a lot of like meal kits. So like we get that, you know, buying from your local farmer can be a little bit overwhelming if you're used to shopping at the grocery store. But so we do a lot of meal kits or like sampler packs where it's like, okay, this is a good way to try a little bit of everything. And it's not so, you know, overwhelming, but also it's like there's nothing to be scared of. It's just like how you would go into a Brookshire's or a Kroger, except for maybe we're nicer and there's less product.
Well, probably a little bit more hand holding.
Yeah, I would say like seek out farms that have what you already buy. So that might, you know, it depends on the season and stuff, but maybe it's that like at the farmer's market or the whatever iteration of the farmer's market there is right now in your area. You know, it's like kind of, I don't know how to like ask them. But yeah, but even just like Googling, you know, you want salad or you want a chicken. We've talked a lot about chicken, or you want sausage or whatever. You know, just kind of like there may very well be a farm doing like some of your favorite foods that you know how to cook and that you like to cook. Yeah, we just started a little Facebook recipe share group that I kind of modeled off of a CSA farm, a veggie CSA farm, but that's fun to just like open it up to people to like tell what they're cooking and give other people really simple ideas and stuff.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of talked a little bit about you know, providing some sort of resources, whether it's educational, whether it's like, how do you take a chicken, like break it down, use this for one meal, create a stock from the carcass, etc. And I think having those resources is super important. Speaking of which, I would like to throw out that the Rosalind Charitable Foundation has actually created a resource that we'll be sharing with you. You can go to the Food Prize website. Will also share it in Facebook, but a link to a resource basically of farms that you can support here in our area, as well as other organizations that can help you check out, that you're able to check out kind of divided by parish. So a really great resource. It's interactive, clickable. You click on the farm and it'll take you right to either their Facebook site or the farm's website. So again, thank you to the Rosalind Charitable Foundation for accumulating that for us. All right,
I'll answer that real quick. So CSA Farm stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And there's a couple different iterations of it now, but generally it means people are buying a share at the beginning of the season and then getting a box of produce every week or every other week. And it allows the farm to like crop plan and know that, you know, their stuff is going to home kitchens, but it's all kind of accounted for. And so often that goes with like recipe ideas and stuff, because you may be getting vegetables that you're less familiar with, or things like that. Some people now do, like, they don't make you commit at the beginning of the season. You could just get a box, you know, every once in a while, or they have their commitments at the beginning of the season, but then they'll have add-ons of people who just want a box once in a while, kind of thing. But that's what a CSA is. It's also called like a farm share or things like that.
And a great way to get involved, where you know you don't have to make as many choices. It'll come right to you, and you can see what's in season right then. I'm going to end this panel with kind of a fun question, something light to kind of take us out. Which I love this. What is one menu item or one local product that people should buy more of, that you wish people bought more of? And it could be like your favorite vegetable that, like, I wish someone would spend kusha. I would love to hear everyone's everyone's on this one.
I got mine. All right, so for nose to tail, like Louisiana does a much better job of this, like head cheese, and you know, people use pig feet for broth, and everything. So I think farming pork in Louisiana is a little easier to move the whole animal than in other places, but pork bones, super underappreciated for broth. Like, people think beef bones, bone broth, chicken bones, bone broth, but even though pasture pork has this like lovely, stronger flavor than conventional plain, you know, like flavorless pork, the broth to me is like super neutral. And so obviously it's used for ramen a lot, but it works great in gumbo and all of our Louisiana broth-based dishes, but often recipes will call for chicken. And so buy pork bones, you will not be disappointed. So good. So much collagen and, you know, all the good gut microbiome stuff too. And whenever you make sausage, when you do a lot of sausage, then you end up with a lot more bones, because you aren't doing bone-in cuts, like bone-in roasts and things like that. So if you want sausage, you gotta buy bones too.
I'll go next. Amen to the pork bones, yes. But also leg quarters. That has been kind of like my recent journey of like, I'm not understanding why people don't love the leg quarters. They're the best part of the chicken. So that is my current.
Definitely.
I feel like we're all kind of preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, so mine would be leg quarters right now.
Actually, I think for us, we do a lot of greens and stuff, but like, we have a lot of people here who use the greens, but the roots kind of go sideways. So we see tons of turnips, tons of radishes, beets, and we see all these things, and we see them sort of as the tubers are the roots part of these things, just being a secondary thing. And maybe they use them, and maybe they don't. But I just wish that people would actually use them and make it easier for me to sell roasted veggie sides as part of our menu options. We already do that, but you know, people are just like, yeah, I don't want to. So I think that if we could actually use the whole plant instead of just the favorite parts of the plants, I think that would be a much better buy. I think some of my local farmers as well would appreciate it, to be able to sell the whole plant, not just the green parts.
I mean, for me, it's honestly, it's like eggs and dairy. Also, I mean, big for me, eggs. Eggs are something that's in probably everyone's household. We've talked about it a lot today. I think they're one of the most approachable in price, whether it's commodity or you know, local or not. But there's such a big difference in them. I mean, just a beautiful, almost red yolked egg is literally like, it's ethereal. It's delicious. I mean, like, I love eggs. You know, I love eggs. And it's just like one of those things that you can't substitute, right? Like there's no substitute for an egg in a recipe. That's good. And I think it's like the easiest, least like it's just super approachable, right? Everyone has eggs, everyone eats eggs, everyone uses eggs for something, and it's something that's just easily cyclable. So that one's my ingredient.
My ears.
But I love some local pork though. I will.
Yeah, and I would also like to add pork fat, rendering down.
Yes,
pork
I was
fat.
going to say that right after you said amen to the pork bone. The skin.
I have 10 gallons of it.
fat.
I have 10 gallons of it rendering right now.
Beautiful.
It's
I
so-
love to hear it.
It's so easy. I wish people knew that. Like in the crock pot, stovetop oven, there's so many options. It's so easy. And then pastured pork, the vitamin D levels alone, just from them being outside, are like astronomically higher. So like the amount of like that good fat soluble vitamin D that you can get from pastured pork, particularly the fat. Yeah.
I think pork wins.
Yeah, I think pork fat's the way to go out. And I love that, like at the end, everyone's gonna, all of us could probably like wax poetically about our favorite items. But I think just like a great way to end, everyone. And I cannot thank you all enough. Thank you first to the Rosslyn Charitable Foundation for helping us bring this panel together, and for the resources that we will provide anyone with. We'll be posting it to our Facebook page as well as to our website. We'll provide y'all with the link. And a big thank you to our panelists today, Kate Estrade, Megan Dortland, Desi Bourgeois, and Tristan Epps. Thank you so much for being with us today. We so appreciate it.
Welcome.
And,
Thanks.
and just to give everyone a quick heads up, our next roundtable will be at the end of May. I'm looking at my calendar now on May 25th. We will be talking with some folks about how to bring additional sources of revenue to your own restaurant or food business. And you don't want to miss that one. But until next time, thanks everyone for attending. We'll see y'all soon.